निवासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते.
Beginnings of the transgender ideology. Okay, check this out. Check out this interview on Jordan Peterson. So, many years back, I was just going from one Wikipedia page to another, researching different topics. I had a lot of free time on my hand. I think this was when I was in college. So, and that's when I stumbled upon this story of Dr. Money and the Reimer brothers. And I did not know, after all these years, that when transgenderism has become so popular, that that doctor is the source of all this transgenderism ideology. Okay. And a woman who researches on these things, she is a pediatrician herself, she is Jewish, and she has been countering these ideas from way back in 2009. Okay. So listen to her description of that story. I'll give you a gist. Basically, in the beginning, how did transgenderism start as an academically valid proposition? Okay, there was a doctor who believed in the theoretical idea, which was just a theoretical idea back then. There was no experiments done, obviously, that gender is completely a social construct. Your gender identity is a social construct. Biology is different. Now, our Chief Justice is saying that even biologically, no one is absolutely a man or a woman. That's a different thing. But so that doctor wanted to prove this. So he catches hold of a dirt poor white family, and they have one son and a daughter, and or two sons, I don't remember, but one of them or both of them, he does surgeries on them when they are very young, toddlers, and he tells the parents that and the parents are in awe of that doctor. That doctor has all the qualifications, PhD, diploma, etc. from Johns Hopkins University, okay, medical university. So he says that, see, I'm going to prove to you that gender is a social construct, and for that, you just raise this boy as a girl, okay, give them girls' clothes, girls' toys, etc. and you'll see that he ends up being a girl. Never ever mention that he was a boy. But his symptoms, his behaviors don't change. That boy feels trapped in his mind, in his body. He, even after his penis is cut off, he tries to pee standing up. He has an instinct to do that, even though he has known all his life that he's a girl, okay. And then he is forced to have sex with his sister, and both of them are artificially transgenders. That's what the doctor was trying to prove, okay. Then he writes a paper describing this process. That paper becomes famous. Then people forget the family, and then it becomes academic consensus that gender is a social construct, and it's actually a proven theory that when you raise a person according to a gender that you think is right, that's how they grow up. There's nothing inherently boy or a girl in a boy or a girl. Then years later, decades later, that brother and sister, they come out in public and they say that we are suffering, we're absolutely screwed, we have started living as our opposite genders again, and then they kill themselves. They commit suicide years later. As I had mentioned in my Instagram story post, that all our lives for 75 years, USA and the West has thrust any random ideology that has come to its mind on Indians, and Indians have gulped those down, swallowed all those ideologies, thinking that अच्छा घोड़े चमड़े वाले ने बोला है तो सही होगा, अच्छा PhD वाले ने बोला है सही होगा, अच्छा हार्वर्ड वाले ने बोला है सही होगा. Now for the first time in 1000 years, we are prepared beforehand for an attack, okay. You have no idea how significant this is. We are absolutely prepared for any transgenderism discourse or debate, because we are prepared, and we knew this was going to happen, and it has arrived on our shores because of our Chief Justice, and we will have to counter this. So just in light of that, let's check out the beginnings of the transgenderism ideology, how meaningless, stupid and evil its beginning was.
Theory, he had his theory.
They're talking about Dr. Money, okay, the Money, that's his name, the guy who had come up with this theory.
And he didn't have any way of proving it, because, I mean, how do you prove something like that? Until this family showed up at his doorstep, and it was a Canadian family from Winnipeg, I think, right?
I think that's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And they
Canada में ही, obviously.
were the Reimer family, a blue-collar, very young couple, 20, 21 years old.
Blue collar means working class, okay?
And they had a horrific tragedy in their family, which is that they gave birth to twin boys. The boys were fine. And when the boys were, well, actually they had phimosis. Phimosis is a abnormality of the opening of the urethra. And so the doctors recommended circumcision for the boys. And they went in when they were 8 months old for circumcision. And the first boy to go in for the circumcision was Bruce. And the equipment, there was a malfunction of the equipment. And they were cauterizing the penis in order to circumcise it. And instead of just that small amount of tissue that was supposed to be cauterized, apparently the settings were incorrect, and the entire penis was burnt. So Bruce's penis.
तो circumcision करने गया था, गलती से penis ज़्यादा काट दिया. Okay, Binay Singh is saying, is he Indian? You mean Dr. Money, right? No, M-O-N-E-Y. He is white only.
And the entire penis was burnt. So Bruce's penis was burnt, beyond any functionality. So these poor parents went home. The other boy was not circumcised, just obviously. They went home, and what are they supposed to do? They have a boy without a penis. What the hell are they supposed to do? So
गलती से penis जला दिया. That's the start of the transgenderism ideology.
Months later, they were watching television, and John Money happened to be on there. And you have to know also that John Money was an extremely pompous, self-assured individual.
Pompous means arrogant.
Well, he was sophisticated. When he talked, you listened. He came across as being definitive, calling the shots, knowing what was going on, knowing the research, knowing the truth. And he in this interview on television said that a boy can be raised as a girl and a girl can be raised as a boy if it's done early enough. And that
which is the basis of all transgender ideology today.
Early enough means before the age of 2.5 or 3. And the parents, the Reimer parents, immediately took note of that, and they thought, here's the answer. This is the answer for Bruce. This is what we're supposed to do. So they contacted Dr. Money down in Baltimore, and they made an appointment and took the twins down to Baltimore and went down there. Again, you have to understand that this was a uneducated, young, blue-collar family. And when they were interviewed later about their meetings with John Money, they described him as like, we just thought he was God. Mm-hmm. We just thought,
That is how PhDs today and academics today want us to view them, which is why I've said this before as well, that whatever Varna distortions did happen actually goes on even today. What did happen? The educated class was the nobility. They started thinking that they are so much above the rest of the society that they start oppressing them. And that's how today's celebrities and highly educated academics treat the rest of us. That's exactly what's going on here as well. And that's exactly the basis of the transgenderism ideology as well. I am God. Listen to me. Like even how Don Lemon was reacting.
They described him as like, we just thought he was God. Mm-hmm. We just thought, he's a professor and he's, got all the diplomas and he's the head of this entire clinic at an outstanding university, one of the major universities in the world.
That was at Johns Hopkins, right?
Yes,
yeah, right.
Yes. So you have to imagine this young
Johns Hopkins is one of the most reputed universities in the world.
Couple coming, and they're at a loss. And they are looking for an answer. They've been praying, they're looking for an answer to their prayers. What are we going to do with Bruce? And John Money says, well, we have an answer for you. Because male and female is actually not related to chromosomes. It's not related to hormones. It's not innate. We can take little Bruce and we have to do some surgery on Bruce. We have to castrate him and we'll remove his testicles. He already didn't have a penis. We're going to remove his testicles. We're going to fashion, some sort of elementary sort of female genitalia. You're going to give him a girl's name and you're going to put him in pink dresses and give him dolls and raise him as a girl. And you are never, ever, Dr. Money told the parents, never to tell him that this was truly what happened and after he was born. Never tell him, because that will ruin everything.
And this is what mainly when someone is opposing transgenderism, even in 2019, we passed our transgender bill, right? Even in America. What we are mainly saying is that don't thrust it on kids who aren't old enough to consent. They don't force the transition on them just because they've seen an Instagram video or a TikTok video saying that, yeah, see, this is how you might not feel like the gender you are born in and therefore you should transition. They should not be allowed to have transition because first of all, they are young. They can't consent for anything. They can't consent for sex, marriage, drinking alcohol, having a job, smoking cigarettes. And therefore, you can't also transition to have your breasts cut off or your penis cut off. That's all we are saying. It's about the children. And that is also the basis of the source of the transgenderism ideology, that this had started by transitioning kids. And there are so many kids who have now grown up and are against the transgender movement. They are against this early transitioning. They are saying that let us grow up. If you think the same way when you are 18, 19, then do it. Go ahead. Not when you're 14, 15, 8 years, 10 years old, like what's happening in USA and what is about to be thrust upon Indian populations as well.
And it's up to you. You have to just work your hardest to raise him as a girl and make sure that everyone around him is considering him a girl, because essentially he is a girl. And so not only was this the answer to the Reimer's prayers, this was, as you can understand now, the answer to Dr. Money's prayers.
Right. He had an experiment.
This was the experiment. This was his proof of concept. His concept was that being male and female is completely separate from biology. It's imposed by society. It's a social construct. And this was his proof of concept. And so the Reimers went home. Well, he had his surgery.
ये proof of concept को दिखाकर आज का transgenderism ideology खड़ा है. Okay, Binay Singh is saying America is passing child labor bill. Yeah, that's actually pretty nuanced. It seems atrocious, but it might not be as atrocious as you think it is. Here's why. इंडिया में तो चाइल्ड लेबर बिल पास हुआ है. चाइल्ड लेबर इज बैंड इन इंडिया. क्या उखाड़ लिया? चाइल्ड लेबर जिसको करना होता है वो कर ही लेता है, ठीक है. जिसका इतना गरीब है वो बच्चों को 5-6 साल की उम्र से भेज देता है लेबर करने में. और यूएसए में ऐसा है कि $15 मिनिमम वेज, $16 मिनिमम वेज, $30 मिनिमम वेज, जो कुछ भी छोटा मोटा काम हो जो कि लोग पास टाइम के लिए करते हैं, हॉबी के लिए करते हैं, वो सबको लिवेबल वेज बनाने का दावा उठ रहा है लेफ्टिस्ट के तरफ से, which is forcing small businesses to close down because it's the small businesses who can't afford to pay those insane wages. Amazon can afford to pay those things, which is why Amazon is indirectly supporting those things, because Washington Post is owned by Amazon and Washington Post all the time supports these things, which end up supporting big businesses and not small businesses. तो चाइल्ड लेबर बिल पास होने से क्या होगा? ये 15 साल 16 साल के बच्चे जो कि मैकडोनल्ड्स में वैसे भी काम करने के लिए शायद अलाउड नहीं थे, मगर दे यूज्ड टू डू इट फ्रॉम 18 years and they were being asked to be paid $15 now. Now the businesses will not close down because if they can hire 15-16-year-olds who will be working for lesser wages. Other than that, remember, it's consensual. No one is going to be going around with guns like in China or Africa looking for kids to work in their coal mines, evil coal mines. That's not how it's going to work. It's the lower middle class and middle class children who are going to anyway spend their time on TikTok and video games because they don't have anything much to do, or they are going to learn transgenderism ideology on social media or go around protesting capitalism. It's better that they work and earn their money. Okay? 16 is enough. 16 is old enough for a lower class person to earn their money and understand the value of hard work, discipline, money.
They took him home. They named they named Bruce Brenda. They put him in all the girls' clothing, and they gave him dolls, and they did all the things. And he peed sitting down sometimes, because as we'll learn later, he actually preferred urinating standing up, which is astonishing. We learned later that he always wanted to urinate standing up. And from the time he was in diapers, I think, he was told he was a girl. So that really is fascinating. But anyway, so they took him home, raised him as a girl, and Dr. Money started to follow the twins every year. They would come down for a visit. The parents would spend time speaking to Dr. Money, and then the money, here's a slip.
Freudian slip for you.
Yeah. Dr. Money would take the twins without the parents into his office and spend time with the twins. So this went on for years. And Dr. Money began to report on his study that became a famous landmark study. And he called her Joan in his study. He was beginning to write about this and lecture. And he was claiming that Joan, AKA Brenda, AKA Bruce, was doing great. She was adjusting. She may be a bit of a tomboy. He would acknowledge that. But in every way, she was adjusting, and she was doing well with friends and with schools, and she liked playing with dolls, and she would mimic her mom. And he was giving this glowing report from year to year. And in his professional writing of his studies, his report, and he was giving talks, and he was getting, you might imagine, tremendous attention for this. You have to understand, this was by now maybe, the early 60s. This is
early 60s, okay? The beginning of feminism. Remember, 60s is the beginning of all culturally insane things.
Feminism, okay? This is the sexual revolution. This is a time when society, or at least part of society, wanted nothing more to say that male and female is a social construct. And that in order to gain, full equality, women have to be considered the same as men. And, to have a study, such as this study of John Money's, in which he was reporting that this baby who was XY, normal chromosomes, normal everything biologically, but is being successfully raised as a girl because he has a girl's name and dresses and dolls, and all, his entire society, his teachers and his grandparents and everyone is reinforcing the idea that he's a delicate girl who likes to.
हाँ, तो इसके साथ बेसिकली क्या हो रहा है, पूरा का पूरा सोशल कंडीशनिंग दिया जा रहा था ऑपोजिट जेंडर का, फिर भी didn't work.
Hook and is going to grow up to have babies. This was huge.
Someone send these clips to our liberals or tag the Supreme Court of India and post these clips on Twitter.
Now, what happened is that this theory of John Money's was accepted over the decades. We didn't find out what really happened with the twins until decades later. And in the meantime, during those decades, his theory became doctrine. Okay, his theory became just baked into, so many fields of both soft and hard science, so that it was standard that whenever you had, for example, an XY or any child that had ambiguous genitalia, if they could be raised as a girl, they'd be raised as a girl. So they'd be castrated just automatically. Why? Because of the great success, because of what John Money proved to us. And so lots and lots of boys all over the world. This was written in.
वो जो proved to us हुआ उस वक्त, that became the basis of all the transgender ideology of today. But what they ignored was what those kids said after they grew up.
Into the textbooks of endocrinology and the textbooks of genetics. This became truth, so to speak. Not that there weren't people, other scientists that were standing up and saying, John, this isn't proven yet. Let's look a little closer. This is not necessarily the case. But what did he do? He wouldn't tolerate that. John Money, was a tyrant. He would not tolerate another psychologist or biologist or geneticist standing up and trying to publish something that would challenge his great gender theory.
See how familiar that sounds in case of Indian historians. These people never had the balls to debate Sitaram Goel. Remember? Sitaram Goel कितना बार invite किया इन लोगों को debate करने के लिए. Even the court invited them to put forth their views on the Ram Janmabhoomi case. Crickets. No one was found to put forth their ideas then. जब हो जाता है वर्डिक्ट, उसके बाद सब बोलते हैं वहाँ पे तो बुद्धिस्ट का मंदिर था, हिंदुओं ने भी कितना बुद्धिस्ट मॉनेस्ट्री तोड़ा है, ये सब बोलते फिरते हैं. Call them on a public platform to debate? Hawa.
He would arrange, he would intimidate the editors at the scientific journals to not publish those articles. It's a lot of what's actually going on right now is very similar.
Right.
So,
right.
So what happened with the twins is that after decades, in fact, John Money wrote a book in 1997 in which he said yet again that his twin study, that his gender theory had been confirmed and supported by the results of this experiment with the twins. And the following
one person experiment, by the way, a one person experiment.
Yeah, but even that one person, it didn't work. Okay, so in 1998, what do we call him now? Not Brenda, not Bruce, but what happened is that we discovered that he stood up and he said he just blew the cover of this whole thing was a hoax. And his name was now David. Brenda had become David. And he was not only a man, but he was married to a woman with, and he had adopted 3 stepchildren, and he worked as a janitor in a slaughterhouse.
Right.
So that was David Reimer, and people can go onto YouTube and hear him being interviewed about his experience of what it was like to be told for 14 years of his life that he's a girl, and to never, ever, ever feel that was his truth. And what happened is that during all those years, he was not happy with his dresses and with his dolls. He wanted to go play with his brother's toys. He wanted to pee standing up. He wanted to, he was rough. He was so boyish that and aggressive.
So this basically proves that gender dysphoria, or that in the mind you can have a thought of your gender which might not be aligned with what society is thrusting upon you. But this does not mean that society is the only thing that's creating your gender. Okay, it's in the mind as well. So society को दोष देके भी कोई फायदा नहीं है, which is the conflated and dubious, ambiguous narrative of the transgenderism argument. It's only society creating, but it's in your mind. It's all confusing.
That kids called him cave woman.
Okay, yeah. Binay Singh is saying that Gulf has advantage over India by radicalization. Why would they want to de-radicalize India? Do you know about Ankit Shah? Yes, I know about Ankit Shah because he has come on Sanjay Dixit's podcast a few times. That's as much as I know about him. But I think every country has priorities, and Gulf countries mein Qatar is the main culprit. Every Gulf country's morning to evening, their only goal in their life is not radicalization and not destroying India. That's not what they wake up in the morning for. They have their priorities for their country as well, in which case de-dollarization helps them as well. That's why they are just prioritizing that over radicalizing of Indian youth.
Made fun of him because the way that he walked and his gestures and his interests were all so masculine. And he was a miserable child, and the family was miserable. And on top of everything, when the family was going back for those yearly visits to Johns Hopkins with Dr. Money was sexually abusing those twins.
Okay, how?
He was forcing them to undress and to mimic sexual intercourse. And he would say, this is what men and women do together. And he would, humiliate them and show them pictures. And the point came, why did they stop going down to Johns Hopkins? The boys refused to go. They refused to go back to see Dr. Money, and the parents couldn't understand why.
Actually, I had seen in the documentary which I had seen years back that one of those brothers who was turned into a girl artificially was forced to have sex with his brother who grew up as a boy. वो यहाँ पे mention नहीं हो रहा है.
Offline sessions. Get an exclusive 3-month free trial at hallow.com.
David Reimer committed suicide eventually, didn't he?
Yeah.
So that guy in the end killed himself.
So that's the denouement of that particularly tragic case.
And his twin.
So not only was this a failure, it was a... Go ahead.
Oh no, it was a disaster.
So if you actually have a gender in your mind, society can't thrust itself upon you. Okay, that's the conclusion of this entire topic. That transgenderism ideology is saying that everything is in your mind and everything is being thrust upon you socially. But what we are seeing here is that if you do have a gender in your mind, it will bypass even social conditioning. That's what we are seeing here.
Terrible disaster. He committed suicide, and
so obviously there are actually people who identify as a person from the opposite gender, and they will bypass society. They don't even need surgeries. They have never needed surgeries. We have had kinder community for millennia It's mentioned in Puranas as well, which is why we have had a transgender bill passed from the right-wing Hindutva fascist government.
And his twin brother died of an opiate overdose before him. His twin died first. The entire family was, what kind of words? Traumatized. It's not enough. Trauma is not enough to describe what that family went through.
My parents didn't know a lot that was going on. And if they would have known, it never would have happened. By me not saying anything, the medical community was under the impression that my case was a success story. And I was shocked when I heard that people thought that my case was a success story.
So what we should point out here is that this experiment couldn't possibly have gone more cataclysmically wrong than it did. Right? Not only was what Money was saying was not true in the technical scientific sense, it was an anti-truth, and he falsified the data, and it culminated in the death of two people, the demolition of a family, and the perversion of an entire culture. That's John Money's legacy. And
he never publicly acknowledged it. He never publicly acknowledged that the twins had, that one of the, I don't know John Money died, I think, in 2006, and I think he had dementia. But when the book came out, and when John Colapinto's book came out, that just exposed this whole calamity, there was nothing from John Money. He was still alive. He could have made a statement. Nothing. I'm just saying that's just another, indication of what the immorality of this person, and the lack of acknowledgement, of what they're guilty of doing. I guess it's too much to expect.
So that's the basis of the gender ideology, transgender ideology, and that should not be conflated or mixed up with the same-sex marriage issue. Okay, that's the conclusion for today's live stream. Thanks for joining.
Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramyaka Pardini Shaila Sute